You're listening to Ernestly Speaking, the only weekly podcast that covers friends, foes, and anything that goes. And now, for your badass host, Ernest Owens. And we're back for another episode of Ernestly Speaking with your host, Ernest Owens, myself. Well, it has been quite the week. So much. And I'm very excited about doing this episode. I mean, I'm always excited about doing my episodes, but this one just, there's a lot to unpack. There's a lot to talk about. And, I have taken a lot of time over the past weekend to just reflect and really figure out the best ways to articulate some of my thoughts. A lot of you all probably have an idea what I'm talking about in so many different ways, but sometimes you just have to watch something crash. And it's hard for me because the Libra in me is oftentimes wanting to come in, save the day, avert, the unstoppable. You watch a Greek tragedy, and there's always that point in the Greek tragedy where you're at that point of no return. It's the part where I don't know if the character's the protagonist or the main character, but they're at that point in the plot where they're deciding whether they should go left or they should go right, but they're not sure exactly where they want to land. And that's exactly what I'm witnessing, not with myself, but with a situation that is happening in front of me. And I've gotten to the age where I've realized sometimes you got to let go and let other things play out. Sometimes you can't be the one to intervene. The signs are in front of you. The truth is there. The common sense is there, even if people can't make it make sense. And so I got some thoughts about that, but I want to talk a little bit about the week before we got into what went down over the weekend. So first off, my book tour wrapped up. My national book tour wrapped up this week at Rider University in Lawrenceville, New Jersey. It was fabulous. It was incredible. I mean, what a way to conclude an experience. Packed auditorium. We had dozens of students on campus. This was a program that was put together by the Rider Center for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. They have a new center that is very inclusive. And they brought me on as a guest speaker to talk about my book, but also to talk to students about career paths. And so that was a really big thing for me to do. I love talking to young people. I love talking to, specifically college students that are in that place where they know what they want to do, but they're just trying to figure out the how. And so that was a good opportunity to really talk to these students and really just give them some insight and some wisdom on, what is life post undergrad, what is life post undergrad? What does that look like? And so that was great. And then also just having the real conversation about cancel culture, especially in this day and age, because how timely is this book, y'all? Like, I'm sitting here like when this book came out in February, I knew it was a timely topic, but the more the year, continues, and when I make these stops and when I'm having these conversations, making these appearances, I'm realizing how relevant and how necessary this is for so many young people, so many people who are progressive, so many people who are very vocal on social media. Like, this book is really speaking to a group of people that I didn't imagine. When I wrote this book, it's an adult nonfiction. So I'm thinking people who, are lawyers, people, professionals. And I really did not consider how big of a deal this book would make on college campuses. I know how much cancel culture has caused people to not have guest speakers and all those situations, but I did not imagine how many students would gravitate to the book and how that has driven a lot of college campus appearances that I'm still actually making. It's not the book tour per se, but just conversations about this topic and also incorporating the book in the mix. So It's been awesome, but Rider University did a really good job just with the hospitality. Shout out to Sean. Shout out to everybody who was over there who was a part of that process. It just really gave me the hospitality and the respect. It was dope. So, kudos to Ryder. And shout out to all of you all who was supporting this tour from the very beginning. It was a full circle moment to start this book launch party in February with the incredible Miss Patty Jackson of WDAS, and then to do the second to last stop with her at Cheney University. It just felt full circle. So I'm just so grateful for all of you all who continue to buy the book, promote the book, listen to the audio book, just spread the word. And the sales have just been great. Like just it's been 8 months now. Wow, 8 months. I just think about how many episodes like of this podcast I did in anticipation of the release date of the book. And now here we are, 8 months since the book is published, and we're still making waves. There's still conversations. There's still events. So I'm grateful for that. I'm really grateful for that. Other things, November issue of Rolling Stone, two November issues I'm involved in for two great magazines. So first off, Rolling Stone magazine, the surprise came out last week. I am writing an important editorial that has come out online, but will be in the print magazine for the November issue of Rolling Stone, which the front cover is Lotto and Snoop Dogg. It's Musicians on Musicians, which is a series Rolling Stone do, where they have two musicians from the same genre talk to each other about the process. And normally it's like an OG and a young person, a young artist, an emerging artist. And they kind of talk about music. I think a couple years ago was Paul McCartney and Taylor Swift that did a conversation. And so it's these cool trends around music. And it's really interesting to see how they reflect and how the genre changes. And so, Snoop Dogg's a rapper, Lotto's a rapper, Put on the Floor. That was my summer song, the remix with Cardi B. They were talking about the industry and what her experience is like navigating as a woman and how he has evolved in his craft. So it was a great conversation. But in this piece, we talk about Jan Wiener, which I talked about him a couple of weeks ago. This is the founder of Rolling Stone magazine who had made those sexist, racist remarks about legends in the music industry and about his book called Legends, which basically featured all 10 white straight men. And he basically said that women and people of color basically were not articulate enough to be in his list. And that was a pretty big damn deal. And the consequences that happened following his remarks led to, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Board of Governors, which he co-founded that as well, basically calling for him to resign, which he did. And a lot of other backlash, And so the current Rolling Stone, which is now owned by his son, Gus, Gus disavowed his father's remarks, rightfully so. And the magazine wanted to collectively take a bold stance and share articles, calling out that history and how they plan to move forward. And so I wrote an op-ed, a column, an editorial for them that, they reached out to me to do. I was commissioned to do it. And I spoke on, how Rolling Stone looked like and how it felt like for me when I was a young, wide-eyed young person that was interested in pop culture. There wasn't a lot of magazine covers that showcased the talent. I'll give you a fun fact. Beyonce only has one solo front cover on Rolling Stone. Rihanna only has two. But you have people like Adele, Katy Perry, Gaga, Taylor Swift that got over 3, 4, 5 and counting. And I'm not saying that those individuals don't deserve, right? They've contributed to music in a very impactful way. But there are so many incredible Black and brown artists that have not graced the cover of Rolling Stone at their height in ways, and or did not get the same consistent shout outs and press. Someone like Barack Obama, former President Barack Obama, has been on the front cover of Rolling Stone more than several of the favorite artists of the generation, Black artists that you would think. He has more front covers, I think, than Jay-Z and Kanye. When they were at their height. outcast, it's interesting. And so it's, for, that's a problem, you know? Um, when I look at the authors and the people who write for Rolling Stone at the time, back when I was growing up reading these magazines, it wasn't a lot of the prolific black music writers that we think of, like Torre or, people like Dream Hampton. They weren't writing for Rolling Stone. They were writing for Essence and Ebony and Vibe and Jet and all these other places. They weren't given the same expansion and visibility and access. And in that publication, I mean, they went and did great things. Look what Dream Hampton did, her impact and how it continues on with surviving R. Kelly, right? But that wasn't the culture, back in the 90s, early 2000s. Even now, it's still not as many. A couple years ago, when I started writing for Rolling Stone, I was shocked. I was like, wow, I thought one piece was going to be it. That was going to be a fluke. But I have since went on to write several pieces for them, have won several awards for them, including, I won an NOGJ award this year. A couple years back, I won an NABJ award. Look at that, huh? I got nominated for a GLAAD award for some work that I did with them. Like, this work continues. And to be in the position I am now, to be able to write about that history and to prescribe what can happen in the future, that's been inspiring. That has been, a moment and, something that I would have never imagined years ago. So shout out to Rolling Stone. Shout out to Philly Mag. This November issue is the Power issue, which includes the 150 most influential Philadelphians. Yes, this year we did 150. And look, people are going to debate about the list, who should be on it, who shouldn't be, who was ranked higher, who wasn't ranked as high. It is the vibes. You know how it goes, y'all. It's the vibes. As the co-editor of that list, I work with a really great team of alongside an incredible team of just great journalists who got swag and understand, they're tastemakers. I think that's the best way I would describe them. I would describe them as tastemakers, people that, basically are very intentional in, what the issues are. And I think was the most impressive thing, seeing, people who, understand Philadelphia inside and out, can be able to understand history, And I think the diversity of the people of the list is what stood out to me the most. I'm going to tell you the top 10 and a couple of people who made it on the list. But if you want to see the list, it's the link in my bio on Twitter and Instagram. As always, link in bio. So the number one person we put as number one on the list was Josh Shapiro. I mean, the work he's done with I-95, him being the governor that really has emboldened the Philadelphia, not just Philadelphia, but the surrounding counties, but it really just has, propelled the Democratic Party statewide in spite of all of the hiccups, with the state Democratic Committee and the Philadelphia City Committee. Josh Shapiro has really kept his foot on the pulse. Number two is Sherelle Parker. I mean, many people project her to be making history as the first woman mayor of Philadelphia, the first black woman to be mayor of Philadelphia. And, I did a great write-up on her. I interviewed people who were, pretty much had mixed thoughts about, I wouldn't say mixed thoughts, but had real good questions about how she will lead in the future. And she did it. And she killed it. So number three is Brian Roberts from Comcast, is the CEO of Comcast, Philly's only Fortune 100 company, which says a lot, right? I mean, Comcast is Comcast. What can we expect? Number four, Ryan Boyer, who's increased in power. I mean, he is the leader of the Philadelphia building trades. We don't even think of Johnny Doc anymore because of the big reach and power Ryan Boyer has had as a black man in Philadelphia, as just a leader in the region. I mean, he is a big deal. Number 5, David Adelman. David Adelman is the guy pushing the 76ers arena. I want to just say that the most influential Philadelphians aren't necessarily the most popular Philadelphians or the most loved Philadelphians, but they are consequential. They are influential to the future of the city. And what this 76 arena could do if it happens will really impact the city for better or for worse. So David Adelman is number 5. Number 6 is Liz McGill, who is the president of Penn. Right now, it's hard to imagine. Like, she is the most, out of all the university presidents right now, no one's getting as many headlines right now as Liz McGill. I mean, the controversy right now on the campus at Penn, her, very different approach to the university compared to Amy Gutman is hard to ignore. So, number 7 is Madeline Bell from CHOP. She's CHOP's president and CEO. The largest children's hospital in the city. I mean, she took home $7.7 million. She had a compensation that sat more than $2 million higher than the second highest paid Philadelphia area health system CEO. That's just, power. Number 8 is Tony Watlington, Dr. Tony Watlington, who is the superintendent of the Philadelphia School District. Come on. How can we not, right? Number 9 is Jeffrey Yass, who's the richest person in Pennsylvania, who is pouring hundreds of thousands of dollars, which we'll talk more about later in the episode, to really go after progressives. He is a Republican billionaire. He's the Susquehanna International Group founder. He is really big on, charter schools and other issues. He's got a lot going on. So he's consequential. He's still around. And then number 10 is John Fry, who was the president of Drexel. He's doing a groundbreaking $575 million genre therapy center, which is a partnership with Spark Therapeutics. That's a pretty big deal. The University City presidents, I would say, topple everyone. Liz is number 1, but John Fry is no one to sleep on as well. So yeah, he's there. He's there. So those are the top 10. Other people that's on the list: Jalen Hurts, number 15, a big standout. The James Beard award winners, Cooks. The youngest person on our list is 19-year-old Jamil Q. Duncan, who made a splash with all the multiple things that he do. He's talented. Some other folks that are new: Pastor Carl Day. Number 24 is the City Council Presidential Hopefuls, which prominently features council members Kenyatta Johnson, Curtis Jones Jr., and Mark Squilla. Other people that's on the list that might be a new face to some. There's a lot of people that we already know, but interesting duos that I would add that's on the list in solo capacities, big names. Number 46 is Michael Rubin and Meek Mill as a duo. Other people that's on the list that's pretty unique in their own way. There is the Sherelle Parker Brain Trust, which they ended at number 57. It's 5 people that was really pivotal in electing Sherelle Parker. So they were on the list. We also did a special section for the Gun Violence Chronicles, the journalist that's really been covering gun violence in Philadelphia. They have a section on the list. There's the typical folks that we see all the time. We got people like Conrad Brenner, Michael Scholston, Mike Solomoff, M. Night Shyamalan, who's always on the list on a regular basis. Regina Hairston from the African American Chamber of Commerce. There's other folks like Sharif Street, Erica James, who's the warden dean. She's on here. Delilah Wilson Scott, Comcast Chief Diversity Officer. landed on the list, surprising for the first time. But then you have legends like Patty Jackson, Patti LaBelle, State Senator Vincent Hughes. So it's a very um, eclectic list in so many different ways. I mean, it's very diverse, lots of different faces, lots of different power players. Gillian Wallow was on the list for the first time. You got Taib Smith, who's been a mainstay on the list. I mean, this guy, who can deny him, right? Chill Moody's on the list. Keira Bradford Gray's on the list, which she's been on before. It's a very, of course, Jason Kelsey's on the list. Who could forget him? But it's a very fun list. It's a very fun list. There's some familiar faces. There's faces you've never heard of before. Legends. It's a very fun list. Bob Brady's on the list. Of course, the party leader, Democratic Party. But it's a very interesting list. So check it out. See who you think should have been on, who you think shouldn't have been on. Debate yourselves, debate your cat. But it was a fun list. So other things I've been up to. Halloween, I celebrated early. I know this week is technically we're going to get to November this week, and then Halloween, of course, is before. Halloween was well, I did. So the Lit Brothers did Halloween at the Halloween Speakeasy at Philadelphia Distilling, which is my favorite bar in Philadelphia. It's my favorite bar. It's one of my favorite places in Philadelphia, period. But I so much love Philadelphia Distilling. I just love Blue Coat Gin. It's my shit, y'all. So they had a Halloween Speakeasy that we got invited to. The Lit Brothers went, of course, it's myself, Josh, George, Jamarcus. It's us. And we wanted to do Halloween. And it was funny because I think the last episode I was kind of like, I don't know how I feel about Halloween. I'm kind of, do it matter? Am I going to do it? I was kind of feeling cynical. And then all of a sudden, I don't know, something hit me and I was just like, we should do something. What can we do that makes sense, that's cool, but fun, but would also be creative? Because I feel like I like Halloween costumes that have thoughts. Look, do Halloween how you want to do it. I'm not judging folks how they do it. But for me, I never just wanted it to just be an opportunity to just, I see some Halloween costumes, I'm just like, I don't want to dress like a celebrity. I feel like that's always the easy thing to do. Dress like another famous person. I feel like that's just, it's okay. What's the other thing? I didn't want to do something that just felt like lazy, like super lazy with no real thought. So I was just trying to figure out what could it be. And so in the group chat, Jamarcus had said, look, I'm just going to come in there with a colored wig, a blonde wig. And I was like, we should just do different color wigs. I'll get a pink wig. And we wanted to do bobs. And then we were like, let's wear all black with them because that would be cool. And then the more we thought about it, we was like, well, who would dress like this and what would this be? What would be the energy? And then the concept about Karens just kind of just made sense. We was just going to mock Karens, different types of Karens. We made nicknames. I was Karen, but then we was all different Karens. But then there was Suzette and then there was Marsha. We made up these names and they were fun. They were fun. It was a cool vibe to be able to make up, these personas. But the funny part was that I loved how everyone got it, on social media. When we ate. And we were like, we're calling your managers. We're crying on cue. We're, we just, I loved it. I just loved it. I was like, we're calling your managers, we're filing complaints, we're crying on cue. We're the Karens. We're asking if you got a permit. We're gonna, that's what we're about. And I just loved how we played it. So we had the little sassy glasses, our little black shades, our bobs, our cute little, poses. And we just ate. We ate, y'all. I'm sorry. We just did it. And I couldn't stop laughing. I was trying to videotape, but I couldn't stop laughing. Because we were just so on it. My God. I think Jamarcus saying, I want to speak to your manager just took me out so many times. it was so hard to record because I was just laughing so much that I couldn't even say my lines. And we were at this spot, and Philadelphia Celine, they have it's in Fishtown, so you have the white folks, you got got the diversity, you got different people. But like, it was funny because people were asking us who we were, and then when we told them who we were, they were like, I wouldn't say they were uncomfortable, but they were like, oh, 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 oh. They didn't know what it was giving because we had the different wigs on, so it was kind of giving Powerpuff Girls, maybe, something else, the Supremes. I don't know. But people were asking us, and then when we told them who we were, and then we were, acting our characters out, then they got the jokes, and it was funny. So, no, we loved it. It was epic. Such a great Halloween concept. And it was something so spontaneous. Like, we did not think about this for weeks. It just was something that literally came to us within a weekend. And, like, we got the wigs fast through Amazon. Shout out to Amazon with them fast, deliveries for, so, but, it was great. And, of course, Philadelphia Distilling never misses with their cocktails. Oh, my God, the drinks were so good. But it was a vibe. It was a total vibe. And, like, now, I don't want to think about Halloween next year. I don't want to put too much thought into it. I just want to just kind of weigh it out because I'm like, what are we going to do next year? But I'm like, we'll find out. We'll get it right. We'll figure it out in time. And it'll be epic. So, yeah, that was that. So I did an exclusive for Eater Philly. This has just been a great, just being a food editor. I'm talking more about that in another segment of the podcast about food critics and whatnot. Because, my boy Keith Lee, I stand for Keith Lee. But I'll talk about him in a minute if you all never heard of him. But anywho, I did an exclusive at Chica. That's the new ramen bar spot that's inspired by Blade Runner that's in Rittenhouse. So Chica means speakeasy. Well, it's a speakeasy. The place is a speakeasy, but Chica is Japanese for like basement. I enjoyed it. I thought that the vibe was on point. I felt like the fact that they had this really cool concept. It seats like 48 people. It's 2,000 square feet, so it's not that big, relatively speaking. But it's again, it's a speakeasy. It's a vibe. There's no major reservations right now that's available. It's kind of like a walk-in. It opens this upcoming Thursday, November 2nd, and it's going to be the talk of the town for sure. They have Japanese bites, but they have really good ramen. So they got like edamame. They got what else they had on there? Yakitori, like all the different types of hand rolls. It's a pretty solid spot if you're trying to have that Asian fusion energy, but then something really cool and pretty. Like, I know this place was made for Instagram, and you see those neon lights, you see the dark to the light. It looks like that noodle bar scene, and some of the designs are actually from there, and that just really stood out to me. So it was cool, and the reception online, the traffic, and everyone reading it was dope. So I love to have like those exclusive stories where like you haven't seen these photos, you're seeing it for the first time, and people are losing it. It's pretty dope. So shout out to the wonderful people at Chica and Glue Hospitality, which is co-owned by an Asian restaurateur, which is awesome. Because sometimes I feel like there's cultural appropriation a lot where, people come up with these restaurant concepts, they don't belong to the culture, they have no connection, and they just hijack. And so to see that there is an Asian influence in leading and leading this restaurant and this concept at this magnitude is pretty inspiring and also dope. So shout out to Glue Hospitality as well. So, I'm going to get to the chase. I'm not even going to talk about nothing. Let's talk about this NABJ-Philly situation because, the good thing about doing this podcast is that you all listen, a lot of you all who listen every week, the thousands of you who subscribe and download and listen to the show, you all been following this with me since, I don't know, the beginning of this year when I got banned for 5 years by NABJ, which I'm not even going to get into all that because y'all know. And if you don't know and you're new and you're listening, you're nosy and you done shared the link with people because you know how they do, you could go back and look at that episode. It's a special edition episode that I did back in April. It's in the bonus episodes. You can catch up and find out what the hell happened then. Because what happened then leads to what happened this week. And I've been talking about a little bit leading up to some of the drama that's been going on. But things have, become official, and a lot of you all have seen Instagram, the pictures, the videos, the posts, and being like, wait, ain't that your friend? Isn't that your friend? I thought y'all was cool. And remember how I was saying throughout these podcast episodes, I was very much like, look, I'm not trying to broadcast and air these people out. I'm going to let them reveal themselves. I want y'all to know I was not surprised by the people who was there. I wasn't shocked. I wasn't even pissed. I was disappointed because as Black journalists in a city like Philadelphia, with all of the shit that's going on, for people to be this interested in being spiteful, vengeful, bitter, and jealous, and just like if you're gonna be a sellout in a way that will benefit you and not harm you. Have you ever seen people literally I've never seen anyone jump out of a building before, thank God. But what it felt like was seeing people literally go, we're about to, fly. And we're gonna fly and we're gonna get out this building, and we were told by the people who enslaved us that we would get wings if we jump out this window. And so we're all going to just jump out this window and hope we can fly. And we know how it's going to end. And I think that seeing so many people put their own personal egos and their own interest before and beyond the community in such a way was the more upsetting part of it. Look, this shit is bigger than me. This shit is bigger than all of these people. We're talking about the soul of a community. We're talking about the future. And it's interesting because it's hard to see the future with that particular group when you can look at who's leading. So I'm just going to keep it 100. I'm going to say some things that I don't often talk about because as a Black queer person, I know that I live in a society that often do not want to hear any Black queer people specifically talking about homophobia and the hurdles they take. Everyone just shuts their eyes and say, oh, shut up. Oh, whatever. They don't believe me. They gaslight. No one wants to hear it. And so a lot of times, one of the things I have also not done, and I often debate about it, is I don't oftentimes broadcast the hurdles and the bigotry and the hatefulness that I have to navigate to be who I am, live how I live, speak how I speak, and exist the way I do. Because I have been so blessed and I've been so fortunate to have opportunities and access and resources that supersede that level of hatred. That being said, just because, and I've learned this too, just because I've had those things and I've been fortunate to have those things, it doesn't mean that I too don't experience hurt or betrayal or disrespect. And I have to not always feel like I have to ignore those real lived experiences in the name of showing gratitude for what I do have. Two things can exist at the same time. I could be a very successful person that has persevered and have inspired people, but I also can be somebody who has been the target of a lot of adversity based on doing that kind of work. And there's a duality, and it makes so much sense why a lot of successful Black queer people that I know in the industry often don't want to get into the industry or in community work or do service work. When you look at a lot of the prominent Black journalists in the country, and you look at them and I used to be too. I used to say, why are they not doing enough in these types of Black journalism organizations? Why are they not serving in these capacities? I used to think that they were, and let me be clear, some of them are so wrapped up in their own career, they didn't have the energy to pay it forward. They didn't have the cares. And some of them are selfish. Some of them, they are like, look, it's all about me 24/7. But there are some that I know that told me Wait till you get successful in this. Wait till you get involved. That is when the vultures come. That is when the haters come. That is when you'll be reminded why you're better to protect yourself at a certain point than face so much of the shit. And I agree with that. But I will also add that if I was doing it by myself, I could understand that. But I'm with a team. I'm with a community. I got people that got my back. And I got people that are going to fight and they're going to do what they got to do to see justice. And if I didn't have a team, if I didn't have supporters, if I didn't see a large group of people standing 10 toes down for PABJ and what we are and who we are, if I didn't see that and I felt like it was just a one-person army, it was me against the world, yeah, I probably would have said, you know what, y'all got it, because I'm not going to ruin myself behind a group of bitter people. I mean, if it means that much to you, do your thing. But that's not what's happening. What's happening is that we're seeing a very visual generational divide. We're seeing paternalism manifest itself. We're seeing ageism in the other way, the reverse way, take place. We're seeing elitism take place. And we're seeing a lot of deep-seated anti-blackness, classism, and homophobia, and transphobia move its way through these lines. Let me tell you, I don't say that without having names. There are some people, and they know exactly who they are, that have called me out my name, that have said phrases and things to me to other me in a way to make it very clear that my presence in this industry was not welcomed. It wasn't encouraged. It wasn't inspired. And it's just so much. But this is what I'll say. I joined PABJ actively in 2015. A former president who is now, I will call, one of the Hateful Eight. But this woman reached out to me on Twitter DMs, asked me to join. And I remember being the young, ambitious journalist. I was like 23, fresh out of college, a year out of college, was freelancing. I was at the Free Paper. And I remember being a part of the organization and was like, look, I want to be a part because it's Black journalists. I'm Black. I'm trying to build networks and connections. When I got there, it was mixed. It was a lot of older people in the organization. Most of the people that were there were at least late 30. I mean, the average median age of a member in PABJ at that time, I would say was like 42, if not older. It was not that many people in their 20s. I was, quote unquote, the baby. And the young people that we did have were college students, but like young professionals that were like under 35. It was like a handful of us. It was not that many of us. And we were not, let me be clear, a lot of us weren't what people would consider traditional journalists. We were entrepreneurial. We were doing, social media. We were doing independent filming. We were writing and freelancing for multiple publications, local and national. I'm thinking of certain people I'm talking about. I'm not going to name names, but we were young. We were very young. We were very, eager. But we were up against a group of people that looked down upon us. They judged us. They talked about the way that we conducted ourselves, how we dressed and how we talked and how we said certain words and phrases. And it just really, we were like, I think that Beyonce song, Church Girl, and that was the energy. They really gave it to us. But that was called tough love, right? Constructive criticism. All of those things. But there were also situations where it was obvious that people were projecting their religious views and their conservative traditionalist views on us. I remember when, at the time, my then boyfriend, Mr. Johnson, before we were married, we would go to events and I would always say, hey, this is my boyfriend. This is my boyfriend, Barry. I would always say, this is my boyfriend. And these individuals, a lot of them, some of them, would just change their rhetoric. They would just be like, oh, that's Ernest and his friend. They would re-announce him as my friend. They wouldn't say boyfriend. They wouldn't say partner. They wouldn't say anything else. Lover. No, they would say his friend. Oh, he's with his friend. And I know what that means. Anybody who's queer knows what that means, especially if you're black. You know what it means to go to the holiday event or the Thanksgiving event with family or relatives or coworkers, and you got those people that just will refer to your partner as your friend or your boyfriend or your girlfriend. They won't ever acknowledge that it's the same gender loving relationship. So those were some of the beginning. But then there was a situation with one man who was at that reception we're going to talk about, that was upset at me for a piece that I wrote, and he outwardly called me a faggot on social media. And I remember my friend at the time, who is still my friend actually, he's on the board with me, Manny, called this man out and said, why are you picking on someone? Why are you disrespecting this person? And mind you, this person is no longer a journalist, but they were at one point in time. And no one said anything but Manny at the time that stood up for me. Like, nobody said, hey, that's not okay. Don't say that. These are people that work with this man, that was cool with this man, still cool with this man. And no one stood up for me. No one defended it. No one said anything. The next year in 2016, I ran for the PABJ board for vice president. I lost by 2 votes. And I remember so much of the drama, I could speak on all of the behind the scenes drama that went on during that election. But one of the things that was said consistently was that there were senior members, older members, that were wondering whether or not I was going to push a gay agenda. That if I came to PABJ, was I going to turn the organization out? It was that kind of rhetoric that was used. And there were people who I see every day that know what they said. And again, I kept my silence. I did not speak. I didn't want to rock the boat. One, because at that time I was very young and I wasn't as prominent in industry as I am today. I was concerned that, these people could ruin my career and blacklist me. I didn't know, I had fear. I had fear. And also, I also just did not want to just quit, because I didn't want a couple of people, because in my mind, I felt like, oh, this is a couple of bad apples. A couple of bad apples can't ruin the bunch. So I thought. I stayed in the organization active in spite of some of the clear microaggressions I experienced. When I didn't win that election, the leadership was in place, they made it hard for me to be involved. I was pretty much exiled for a period of time. And I didn't handle it well. At that point, I was very vocal about what was happening and how rude and cruel these people were. And these are black people. These are black journalists locally. Some of these people you all know, and if you knew who they were, and I mean, you're looking at them, they're showing themselves. If you knew who they were, you would be shocked. And some of you all found out and was like, I can't believe she was there. I can't believe. And it's like, I'm going to let you all see for yourselves how fucked up these people are. But I was like, pushing through. 2018, that leadership that was on the board, they were terrible. They did not execute. There was so much division amongst those leaders. The organization was just not doing well. We didn't have that much. We didn't have any money. No money to do any things that people want to do now. There was no money. They didn't know how to fundraise. They didn't know anything about grant writing. They didn't know anything about how to maximize the nonprofit power that we had. I mean, they were excited to get $50 checks. Now we get $50,000 checks, right? But they didn't know anything about that. They didn't understand nonprofit leadership. They were driven by ego. They were driven by perks of the position, who could get on the lists, who could get invited to dinners and parties, and this was all driven by ego. And so For me, it was uncomfortable because I'm sitting here on the board of various organizations that were, led by white people, with predominantly white staffs and groups and things. And I'm looking at how these other organizations are raising money, and I'm thinking to myself, why isn't PABJ doing that? Like, we could be doing this. Like, there are people raising money off of DEI efforts without hardly any black leaders. And I'm sitting here looking like this is money that we could get to do important, necessary work. But, I was in leadership. 2018, I ran again for vice president. I won unchallenged. They tried everything in their power to run people at the last minute against me. They didn't want me to be in a position. They feared what I would do. And what I did and what I continue to do was I was able to prove that this organization can be a place for all black journalists, regardless of sexual orientation, regardless of status in the industry, regardless of, what newspaper you work for. Because heaven forbids that no one cared about the black press. No one cared about giving the black press representation and inclusion in programming and honoring and things. No one cared about considering the fact that, freelancers had a place here in a way that could be productive if utilized in the right way. No one was caring about freelancers in that way. No one was caring about giving, journalists the proper training, creating a pipeline of leadership to groom people for opportunities without actually abusing and exploiting their talent. Like, there was a pipeline that was being proposed and has still been maintained and still has been successful based off of what happened 5 years ago. So in 2018, once the organization was under the leadership of Manny, who was the president, and I was the vice president, the big things happened. We got $50,000 grants. We got our headquarters. We started getting an increase in membership. Younger members came to the organization. Folks that left the organization for many years came back because they saw a value and an interest in what we were doing. Our board was multi-generational. Our board is still multi-generational. We got people at the time, I was in my 20s at the time. We had people in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. Now it's 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. We have a multi-generational board that crosses over various industry expertise. And we was killing it. The pandemic happens in 2020, and, people were like, look, what's next? My president at the time decided that he didn't want to run for re-election because he saw as an opportunity to really encourage me to step up and be president, but also to really take things to the next level. And so, unlike the presidents before us who did not like each other, let me be very clear. Manny's predecessor did not like her predecessor, and her predecessor didn't like his predecessor, and his predecessor, they didn't like each other. The past presidents before us did not like each other. They didn't get along. They didn't support each other. They didn't continue the work with each other. There was backbiting. And don't ask me how I know, because as the young person that was in the room, and I was at the time, green-eyed and wide-eyed, I was the person that everybody, complained to about each other. You know how that goes, where it's the, in families, right? It's the auntie, the grandma, the mom, everybody. They talk to the young person who just listens to them vent. And it's like the little kid that's in the room and they listen to the grown folks arguing. I was that younger member who was just trying to serve, but I also was just caught up in the middle of all of the fighting between these leaders. And so I knew way more than I should ever know about each and every single one of them. And I'm never the type to spill the tea and pull out the receipts. But all I will say is, don't lie on me, don't lie on you, and don't lie on everybody else, okay? Don't lie. Because the way that these people treated each other, the way they talked about each other, the way they tried to undermine each other, I should have known that some of these people that I call my mentors would do the same to me. And why? Because they were all hating on each other based on the fact that they were salty that they weren't the one who was hot at the moment, that they weren't relevant at the moment, that they weren't the person who had the access in their own way. When I got into the position of PABJ president, I didn't look, I did this because one, I believed in supporting black journalists. Two, I knew I would do a great job. And three, because I knew that this organization needed to continue to maintain its success. Period. Like, I wasn't going to let the ship sink under me, because my predecessor was someone who was a mentor to me. Like, Manny is my good friend. He understood the importance of us having a good relationship to continue the organization to be in a good place. The predecessors before us, when they left, they kind of left. They stuck around, but not really. They just kind of really felt out of place, and they were uncomfortable. And some of them grew envious and did other mean, nasty things. But like, the dynamic was there. And a lot of you all listening to this might think of your job, or you're a church deacon board, usher board, you're on church board, a community service group. We see, y'all know these dynamics. And that's why seeing what I see now is interesting. So when I became president, that just changed everything. I was the first openly gay president of PABJ. Let me say emphasize the word openly, because you never know, right? But I was the first openly gay president. And I got people in the organization that came from different walks of life and backgrounds. When I became president, it opened the doors for so many different people to see themselves, right? I was one of the youngest presidents the organization had in over 25 years. You know, I was one of the youngest. We hadn't had anybody be the president in their early, I was like 29 when I was president. We ain't had nobody in their 20s since the 90s. Most of the presidents of PABJ were always like mid-30s, late 30s, early 40s. That's the traditional age, I want to say, in the past decade or so. But where we are now, it was a different energy. And so when I became president, it was a different change in tone. A lot of the people who were past presidents really wanted to give me 1,000 recommendations. And let me be clear. It's one thing to recommend something, demand something. So I should say demand. There was these larger than life expectations and demands about what I do. They overwhelmed me with opinions about my performance and how I talked at meetings and everything. It was like so nitpicky. And what was interesting was that people bragged as a badge of honor of, oh, when you're a PABJ president, you can't be a PABJ president until you get cursed out. That there was this tolerance of verbal abuse, that people would call me and curse me out because they thought that was tradition. It's almost like a hazing, almost like a fraternal hazing where, you're supposed to endure this because you're the leader. And so this opened up people feeling like they could just talk to you however they want because you're the president. And these were older members of the organization. I have to state the fact. These were not young people. These were not people my age that were talking to me like this. And this was a culture. And I was not okay with it. I was like, first of all, no one talks to me like that except my mama. And my mama don't talk to me like that. So how dare you feel like you can yell at me, call me in the middle of the night, threaten me, intimidate me in my employment. Like, it was all types of very toxic shit that I dealt with by a lot of these people when I got into this role. And I protected people. I protected my members. There were members of my organization that was getting harassed. There was a member who experienced transphobia by another person that was on the board at one point. I had to call for that person to be removed And it was a tug of war with some members who felt like it didn't matter. Like, we had to create a code of conduct. Folks did not even want to support the code of conduct. Like, this was the shit I was dealing with, y'all, where it was just, everything was arbitrary. Everything was, we're going to move the goalposts. It was never anything that could suffice. So eventually I began to lean on legal support. We, got a lawyer, we got a team, we looked at our rules, we looked at the structure, and I began to realize why this organization was not making money. The reason why PABJ wasn't making money, and I mean, this is something I've said before in the previous podcast, but we weren't making money because of our codependence upon an affiliation with the National Association of Black Journalists. They were acting as, they say this word of, oh, you are a chapter within. And logically, when you hear that language, if you're in a sorority or fraternity, you know what I mean by chapters. You're assuming that, okay, if I'm a chapter within this organization, the larger organization governs me, they are my provider, and what I do, I have to answer to them, yada, yada, yada. Well, the weird part about that was that PABJ predates NABJ. NABJ was founded in 1975 in DC. Some of the founders who founded them were members of PABJ. Before PABJ was PABJ, the Philadelphia Association of Black Journalists, which we called ourselves in the 80s, we were the Association of Black Journalists. We are the first organization of its kind for Black journalists in America. We are historical. We are the first. We were in Philadelphia, 1974. We made history. Shortly after, NABJ got birth as a national response to what we were doing in Philadelphia. And when that happened, there were several cities that created their own version, and they became quote unquote chapters. And as chapters, we agreed to be affiliated under the national organization. The problem is the national organization is no co-partnership. They don't fund any of the things we do. They're not fiscal sponsor. There's actually there's a separation. They have their own 501c3. And from what I would find out years later, PABJ would create its own 501c3 after a convention was had in the 90s that nearly bankrupted the organization. The organization got so broke that presidents had to do bake sales to sell cupcakes and do fish fries, I believe, to try to get money to pay off debts and to sustain the organization. It was a very dark time. But what I learned from that experience is that people still did not understand NABJ's citywide impact. There were organizations I spoke to in Philadelphia that told me that when they were giving money to NABJ, they thought it was going to trickle down to Philadelphia chapter. That didn't happen. It did not happen. This trickle down Reaganomics that was being proposed did not happen in the way that people thought. And so when I became president, I built new relationships with all of these citywide funders and individual organizations to let them know that a dollar or a check that's not written to the Philadelphia Association of Black Journalists is money that is not going to us. Regardless of what anybody tells you, if the check is not written to PABJ, if it's written to someone else or given to someone else, you can't for certain know if the money is going to help us. And so when that was made clear, we got a groundswell of financial support and continuous support from various organizations who wanted to give money to local organizations like ours that was doing DEI work locally on the ground. And the advocacy that I did, I don't even have to go and speak for days on it, but like the advocacy, as you all know, was there. And it was there with the Philadelphia Inquirer for their history of just screwing up any level of accountability that they could have for Black journalists and Black and brown journalists in general. I mean, the Hispanic journalists, the Asian American, Pacific Island, the AAPI journalists have the same concerns and issues with, an organization like the Inquirer. So when all this stuff was going on, it was just really important to me to have the opportunity to voice those concerns. And my board did, and our members did, right? But NABJ, being NABJ, created a situation where we were pretty much, and this is my opinion, but I can articulate it very well, coerced into leaving because we were being asked to give the names and email addresses of all of our members to the national organization. And I was like, hell no, we're not going to do that. Because why would we give, our members, many of our members are donors. Many of our members are funders. And to give this information up to this organization that does not have any financial obligation to us, I just did not see as a big business move. And I also didn't think it was necessary for us to be able to stay affiliated, quote unquote, with the national organization. They disagreed. And it showed me, in my opinion, that this was deeper than just emails. That this, I hear me say anything but our emails. This was something bigger. And at the time, it made sense to me that, like, oh my goodness, they want money from us. They want money from us. They want access to this city. This city wasn't giving them the same amount of money after I was president. They were not getting and raking in the dough. Like, Philadelphia to them is a gold mine, a big top 4 market that they're trying to penetrate financially because of the fact that the whole system of NABJ chapters is pretty much is that they want people to be on a plantation working to raise money for them. And, they think that the brand is worth it. But the question becomes, there are chapters I know that got less than $500 in their bank account. There are chapters I know that struggles to raise any real revenue consistently for their organization, their city. And everything that is told to these people is just work harder. I remember when I was invited to the Council of President meetings. This is a group where all the chapter presidents within NABJ would meet and would be on a Zoom call and talk. And I would hear these chapters spill their heart out about how they struggled to raise money, how they were trying to do bake drives and fish fries. I was just sitting there looking like, how are you all so prominent and you all are having to sell, fish fries and cakes and things to keep afloat with a multi-million-dollar organization like NABJ that's there? Like, you can't fund these chapters. You're giving them little micro grants here and there, but it was not like collective. Everything about that just didn't sit well with me. It didn't sit well with me. And, I was recognizing that there are organizations that did not have 501c3s. And that because they didn't have 501c3s, that also put them in a position where they couldn't even raise money because no company or organization is going to write a check if they can't deposit it in an organization to get a tax write-off. So there was all of these weird red flags that just stood out to me. But long story short, PABJ made the decision at the time that unless there was a change in leadership, we were not going to be affiliated. And so in December 2022, under the leadership of then President Dorothy Tucker, PABJ decided to not be affiliated at that time. It wasn't permanent. It wasn't forever. It wasn't, something we were going to do for life. We made it very clear that we were looking forward to talking to the next NABJ president, which we would find out later would be Ken Lemon in August. And, we had plans to go back to the drawing board. There were a group of senior members of the organization of PABJ. When they heard about the split, they were heartbroken, they were upset, and I couldn't put my finger on why. But I mean, in some cases, some of them argued that it was a legacy. That was what they said. But then it seemed like in that moment, there was plans to do something different. And they were being misleading. They were not being fully honest. They were not being transparent about what their intentions were. and the truth eventually came out. I allowed this group, it was about roughly 10 of them, to be an ad hoc committee as PABJ members and try to reconcile the issue between NABJ and PABJ. Because so many people was like, they didn't want to see us beefing. I mean, two black organizations, right? Well, they tried. The national organization stood 10 toes down their policy. They wouldn't budge, as it has been said. And they were trying to force the board or the membership to do a vote on whether or not they wanted to be affiliated or not. And I said, well, wait a minute. You got to recognize that some of the policies that NABJ had in place were violating, expectations and requirements that went against the Pennsylvania Nonprofit Code. And no one ever considered looking at what was expected to bring uniformity and legality to a nonprofit within the Commonwealth. That we were struggling to get state funding because at the time, our bylaws were inconsistent. Our structure was inconsistent. And there were plenty of private conversations about assuming why things need to be changed or cleaned up. But the reality is that liability falls on the hands of boards and leaders. At the end of the day, you can spend all the energy in the world talking about what should have been, what could have been, but you also have to get your act together and get yourself together. So in the midst of all of that was going on, NABJ conveniently kicked me out the organization or give me a 5-year ban. Trumped up, I would call it trumped up charges, but trumped up, reasons, tweets that I posted 4 years ago. Nothing around the level of theft or abuse or violence, anything like that. Just me just expressing my discomfort and my concerns, and them basically trying to refute it and say, this is misinformation, even though it was my point of view and my experience. It was very weird. It was very much awkward. It didn't seem to really, it weaponized what the interpretation of First Amendment rights are, said my lawyer. And it was just stupid. And I wasn't going to fight it. I kind of was like, well, I don't really want to be around these people anyway. I don't want to be, dealing with these people individually. Anyway, it's just, yeah, it was a mess. So then, there was the question from members of they wanted to be back in affiliation or at least consider affiliation. And that was when things got messy. Over the summer, we had intercepted some information, and this is the PABJ board, that there were a group of members who are no longer members now that basically wanted to form a new organization, and they wanted to do this separately outside of PABJ, and they basically wanted to ignore the actual core identity of what we are. And it's weird because it's like you can't. Anyway, they wanted to create, I guess, a knockoff, a rendition of another version that is within the space and place of what PABJ was, but they wanted an affiliation with NABJ. So we found out about this. We try to talk to them about it. We say, listen, if you do this, you can't be a part of two organizations, so therefore you're forfeiting your membership. Nobody responded back. No one cared, and no one came back to a meeting. That group didn't. Time passed, and we find out that they're having a reception. This is what happened this week. That they were going to have a reception at the Philadelphia Inquirer headquarters. And so I'm sitting here like, you're going to have your reception at the Philadelphia Inquirer headquarters. Interesting. And the crazy part is that there's been some revisionist history. They tried to claim that, their event they had this reception because they were supposed to celebrate. But the reality was the funders of the reception did not fund a reception for them to celebrate them becoming a new quote unquote chapter. It was a reception that was supposed to be for the NABJ board itself. And so there was a lot of misperceptions about what was and what was true, what wasn't true. But here's the truth. Here's what we know. What we know is that they became officially a chapter on Friday, this past Friday. They had their reception inside the Philadelphia Inquirer headquarters. The Philadelphia Inquirer got funding from their lead funder to pay for it. They tried to invite people that we knew. They invited folks from all over the city. People, of course, reached out to us and asked us what we thought. We told them this isn't us. This is Con, PABJ. This is the adversarial group. And there was an interesting group of people that showed. So what was interesting to me was that, PABJ held a happy hour at Independence Beer Garden, which is right there in Independence Mall. We held a happy hour for our members, a fall happy hour, which we do. We have the pool party, the fall happy hour. We have the holiday party. This is what we do. We had an Independence Beer Garden. Shout out to them. And what was interesting was that while these people walking in, members, including myself, saw. And it was heated at times. People were really upset to see people they thought were their friends, people they looked up to. That was what they considered crossing the picket line. And some of these people I was not surprised about. Most of them I weren't surprised about. Maybe about 2 or 3 I was. But what was interesting was in that room is that all the people that led the charge, many of these people are retired. Many of these people are over the age of 50. Many of these people do not reflect the current progressive, forward-moving, futuristic leadership. And that's interesting, that they don't reflect this. People like myself, people who are digital, print and multimedia, entrepreneur, they don't represent what PABJ looks like. Like, they did not poach the soul, the breath, the pipeline that is PABJ. When I looked at a lot of people that was in that room, it was people who, many of them served in leadership 20, 30, some of them 40 years ago, that already had leadership opportunities, that already been in position, that already done this before. And it's interesting because it's like, how do you make the case that you're representing a more inclusive environment when the people that are now the lead of such an alternative organization, a rival organization at this point, how do you sell that when the majority of the crowd was over the age of 40? How do you sell it to people when the bulk of the people that were really there came from this newspaper that has a history of racism and still continues to piss off the city at large? How do you justify that? How do you sell your soul for lamb chops in an open bar? And so when I saw the people in that room, I said to myself, I get it. I get it in a very disgusting way. I get it that this is a group of people who pretty much have wanted to maintain power longer than they needed to. And that when they saw younger people, progressive thinking people, diverse people begin to try to carry the torch, they were attempting to snatch it from them because they didn't want to let go. And the reality is that in my leadership, it was never about letting anything go. It was about sharing power. That, look, we in my board, we're multi-generational. Our most senior members don't dictate everything that the rest of us do. We work together. We agree to disagree. We share space. We lean on our expertise. That's how you build a core. You don't just decide that because of your seniority, you're entitled to have every single decision making. And if you don't agree, then you're burning the house down. You don't support us. You're this, you're that. And so I saw this pettiness. I saw this very early. And when I look at this current group of people who largely, the only thing they have in common is they don't like me. It's very much the anti-Ernest club. Like, very much so the anti-Ernest club. And it's weird because some of my friends look at these pictures and they're like, wasn't that person at your wedding? Wasn't that person at your wedding? Didn't that person get up there and speak at, it's just been interesting. And people are seeing it. The photos are telling. And you just got to wonder, did these people come to me and talk to me about what they were going to do? No. I reached out to each of them, the ringleaders of this. I reached out to them. They didn't respond back. They said nothing. That's what happens when people choose their own interests above everyone else. So what am I doing? How do I plan to move forward? We still got a gala, November 11th, on a Saturday. Tickets are on sale now. Go to link in bio to buy them. We're running out of tickets. We're going to be sold out. But the work continues. The leadership continues. The support continues. To be very clear to those who don't understand what's going on, in a nutshell, NABJ-Philly, which currently doesn't have an apparatus to collect dues because they don't even have a 501c3, nor do they actually have a business account or account that they could actually get funds through, because none of this was done fully fledged. And interesting enough, it's going to be funny because I wonder if they strive to try to be their own independent entity, the $1 million question becomes, are you ready for the bullshit that you're going to encounter with NABJ? Are you ready to have the same problems we are having that we had with them? We're free now. I mean, the interesting thing was America's birthday was this weekend, or, the Philadelphia's birthday was this weekend, I suppose. And ironically enough, on that birthday of Philadelphia is the birth of independence for PABJ. That we became fully independent because, to be clear, there's no interest from NABJ to authorize. They're never going to authorize 2 affiliate chapters, which is quite fine because, you're not two-timing both of us, right? But the crazy part is that now it's obvious what they want to do. It's deliberate. But to those people, those members, where are you going to give your dues to? You're going to give all your money to NABJ? Y'all going to trust that NABJ is going to have this money? It's not your money because you don't have a bank account. You don't have anything. You couldn't even write a check to them. Where would the check go? Where would the tax write-offs go? If you get a bank account for a nonprofit, you have to have a physical address. You think a P.O. box is going to persist in this day and age? There's a lot of things people just do not think through. And I'm not here to think through for them. But it's just one of those moments in time where you just have to look at people and say, this is what happens when you fuck around and you find out. And I think when you move, and my grandmother said this to me when I was younger, that you don't lead with vengeance. If you lead with vengeance, if that is the core of what you do, is based off of vengeance and trying to fuck over somebody or prove someone wrong. She didn't say fuck over. She's a Christian lady. But her whole mindset was basically don't lead on vengeance. And that love and grace, that will lead. That's what you lead with. That's what you have to lead with. Even when you're frustrated. Even when you're frustrated. Love, truth, and grace. That's what you gotta lead with. Because in this world, that's where your credibility lies. And so that's what I'm gonna do. That's what my board is gonna do. That is what leaders do. We're not gonna spend time taking 1,000 selfies, posting the same group photos over and over, talking mad shit. Just do the fucking work. It's crazy because at the end of the day, where are the scholarships for the kids? How are you going to get people jobs? But you're going to try to use it as an apparatus to recruit people to work for the Inquirer? You know how many young black folks that I know go to the Inquirer, work there, and then turn around and leave within a year or 2 years because the environment has been so toxic for their workplace, they don't even want to stay there. The contrition rate, it's not there. So for all of the energy that people put into it, it's just like, wow, you did all of that. I hope it was worth it. So that's that. Bless their hearts. Bless their hearts, because I make this look easy. My board makes this look easy. We make it look easy. But people are going to realize that this is not for the meek. This is not for the meek. Leading an organization, galvanizing members, diversifying them, dealing with, any, hiccups and surprises along the way. This is not good to wear and tear on people who's done it. I mean, why would you want to hog and boss hog and power trip leadership opportunities from people who should be doing it? Like, all I'm going to say, I ain't even going to put a name on it. But I pray to God that I never live old enough to be bitter and hate on young people. I don't want to be the older person that hates on younger people, that feel like I'm in competition with people old enough to be my grandchildren and my child. I never want to be that bitter, that salty, that unhappy with the trajectory of my career. You see a successful young black man out here doing it, and rather than appreciate, acknowledge, celebrate, and honor it and respect it, you would rather compare your legacy to theirs. How low must you go? Like, how bitter must you be that you would rather find 1,000 ways to try to quote unquote humble and disgrace and embarrass them and try to intimidate, humiliate them rather than build them up? And the world is watching. The public sees what's happening. In Philadelphia, ain't nobody got time for that. Ain't nobody got time for folks to just do shit just because of their personal ego. There's a mentor that I used to love down. And the weirdest thing about this particular person is that my Facebook reminder showed that a picture of us at my birthday party I had at Rex the World last year. And her caption celebrated the 10 years that we were friends and we were close. And I look at now, and I'm like, wow, a year later, look how much changed in that moment. I feel like those are the things that's going to hurt the most. That had upset me the most was that betrayal of folks that I just thought knew better and didn't. So it's a lot to reflect, but I wanted to pour that out and put it on the floor, or leave it on the floor, as they say, as they say. But onward and upward, this too shall pass. So, on to these hot topics. Trump trial is going, and I've made it a point that I feel like during this election, anything that deals with Trump, I just want to keep y'all up about it, because I know, even though everyone's like, we're on to the next topic, in general, people are over Trump, it is still important to know about him and what's been going on with him. So far during this trial, there's been two important elements of Trump's story, and in some ways, people have argued that they're intentional with one another. So has been said by the New York Times. One is that there's been an erosion of loyalty from his from people who he probably fought alongside. A big example is Jenna Ellis. She's a lawyer who she was a lawyer who helped spread the lie that Trump, you know, had been denied re-election by massive voting fraud. And she basically assisted to overturn Joe Biden's victory. Well, last Tuesday, she turned state's evidence against Trump. And this is the case in Georgia. This is the one where he's being accused of a lot of racketeering and conspiracy to keep himself in power. Now, Jenna Ellis, this is a white woman. She was the third Trump affiliate lawyer to flip in the span of a week. You all know, Sidney Powell was like last week, I believe. Kenneth Chesbro. Like, these people pleaded guilty and agreed to testify for the prosecution. They're trying to cover their ass. And it shows. Then we have this other issue with this loyalty test that, as people begin to see what's going on with the case and evidence, politically, people are looking, right? We're going to talk a little bit more about this, but in Capitol Hill, who the new House Republican, I guess, got elected is, Louisiana Congressperson Representative Mike Johnson, who was one of the people that was at the forefront of the election denier movement and was trying to overturn the 2020 election. And, he was a driving force, in the work that he do, his conservative views. So, yeah, I'm not that surprised by a lot of his actions at the end of the day. One could say it's disappointing for sure, but shocker, I think not. But back onto him, the GOP speaker, after several months, I wouldn't say months, a little dramatic, but weeks, this whole speaker situation has been a mess. This guy, Mike Johnson, a lot of people don't know who he is, but he's been interesting. He's been in news. He had an adopted black son that people accused him of hiding. But apparently the adopted black son, who's a grown adult, doesn't really like the spotlight. That's what Mike Johnson is saying. But what's really interesting is that he got a lot of support, Johnson did, from within his conference to become the speaker, which, this happened 3 weeks where there was House chaos because of what happened with Kevin McCarthy, who did not keep the position for over a year, interesting enough. But now the real conversation is that Republicans are apparently, according to The Hill, are discovering the downside of basically electing someone who is not known. And people are wondering that this could, like his views on abortion and LGBTQ issues could really weigh down the GOP. I mean, this man is very homophobic, It was very problematic. He was a leading figure that tried to take down it. The issue became very clear. He apparently when he became speaker, colleagues and people told Rachel Scott of ABC News to shut up when she asked him about his involvement with the January 6th insurrection, like basically his whole problem. But what's also been the mess is that I don't know how he's going to be able to, raise money for the Republican Party. I mean, people are worried about his ability to be able to draw attention, especially given that there are Republicans like Trump who's really trying to, not make the abortion issue, an election issue because they think that they'll be unelectable to a lot of suburban white women who, again, an issue about abortion is a very tricky one. The disagreement about it crosses very different political lines. And so for people who are still on the fence about where they stand, or, they're being encouraged either not to say something about it at all or just let it be. But it's very telling is what I'm getting at. So we're going to see what Mike Johnson do, but it's just, it's not looking that good for him. And other news of what's not looking so good, I don't know if y'all been following the GOP candidates, but we're at that part where people are starting to drop out already because as we get into 2024, it's only so many people that can run for president, and the Republicans are starting to see a drop off. So GOP, the former vice president, Mike Pence has officially dropped out of the presidential race. I never thought he was going to be the first one. I always thought it was going to probably be, Tim Scott or even Chris Christie. But to see it be, of all people, Mike Pence. I mean, normally former vice president. I mean, look at Biden, right? Normally former vice presidents, people who served at some level, like that level, would stay in long enough. The Republican Party is so screwed right now that one of their leading people that could have made the difference. I mean, I'm not crazy about Mike Pence. I don't think he was going to win, but would have been cool to see a Mike Pence Trump showdown at the primaries. I don't know, but at the end of the day, he left so early, which tells you how unpopular he was this entire time. I mean, in a perfect world, I would like, and now I forgot, Ron DeSantis from Florida, right? I would like him, the governor. I would like him of Florida. I would like him to leave, but he's staying on. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. In regards to Philly drama, I talked about this earlier about Jeff Yass, the billionaire, richest man in Pennsylvania, and how he has a war chest that he is setting up to try to get these working family party candidates out the race. So this week it came out through campaign finance reports that Jeffrey Yass, this big, huge billionaire, is dumping $300,000 into a super PAC, a PAC that is intended to go against Kendra Brooks and Nicholas O'Rourke, who are currently running for at-large third-party seats within the Working Families Party. This $300,000 is no joke, y'all. It'll be interesting to see. The good news is that Kendra Nick has campaign ads all on TV. People are watching them. The messaging is becoming clear. They're explaining to people that their race does not impact the Democrats whatsoever, and that the rhetoric that voting for them and not voting for a Democrat is going to hurt them is not true. And to be quite honest, y'all, I'm telling you, I'm personally feeling like I'm going to vote for both of these two candidates. I will not share the two Democrats I'm not voting for. But what I will say is the ones I am voting for are black and queer. Hint, hint. But yeah, I'm probably going to vote for them. I think I am. Because I don't want Republicans, I don't want Republicans, having any sense of power in Philadelphia, and I don't trust them. And if there's anything I could do to stop and reduce their power personally, as a voter, yeah, I have an opinion about some of the concerning things I've heard over the years and the things that's been said. That's just my take. Moving along. So Keith Lee, I want to talk about this guy. He used to be a former athlete. He played some type of kickboxing or something like that. But he's been known recently for his very passionate viral social media videos where he does reviews on restaurants and services. And he's made a real big name for himself. I mean, just going to various places like Chipotle and other places and making recommendations. And people literally are eating him up, no pun intended. They really love his content. So he's been on this tour with his family, going to various cities. He's been to Chicago, I think he went to LA or Oakland or something. And he goes to these various businesses. He likes to go to black-owned restaurants. And he talks about the service, he talks about the vibe, some things he likes, some things he don't like. But he finally landed in Atlanta. And it has been total chaos over there in the A pertaining to Keith Lee. They won't let this man be great. He went viral because he talked about that restaurant Milk and Honey, which, let me just say this. There's this whole narrative about Atlanta restaurants. I don't go to Atlanta like that. I guess I'm reminded why I don't. But there's this narrative that Atlanta restaurants are always super high maintenance, but the service and the quality don't be great. It's a lot of pomp and circumstance. They're making like these Instagram friendly restaurants to get people to come, but everything is very boozy and bougie and bougetto or whatever you want to call it. That people just feel like it's a bunch of smoke and mirrors at Atlanta's food scene, or at least within the black food scene in Atlanta, which I've talked to people from the area and I've confirmed with them they have their own concerns about the place. So I could see those issues. But I still have to say that he talks about his experience at Milk and Honey. He tells his followers, look, he doesn't want anyone dragging them, but just listening to the feedback. And he shares about how pretty much they were talking about they were doing a deep clean, couldn't serve them. Well, he didn't go outside. His wife did. And they basically denied her service, even though it was clear that some people were in the back or around eating. But for whatever reason, they were giving them a difficult time. So he never got to eat the food. And then when he went himself, they recognized him. And then they were like trying to be super accommodating and give him what he wanted. To which he, refused that because he's been a man that stands on principle and he's very big on principle and fairness and things of that nature. So he's like, look, I don't want no special treatment. He pays for his food. He does all those different things. He's very consistent and he gives his opinion. Milk and Honey replied back with a very petty and unprofessional, in my opinion, video trying to, act like, who's Keith Lee? We don't know him. And it's like, child, y'all messing with the wrong brother. Like, this dude is known. Y'all know who he was. Why do you care? And I guess the hit dog will holler. The oversensitivity and responsiveness in that regard. It's like this guy has his opinions. And I guess they see it as an impact one way or the other. But like for me, I was just like, Like, this is the thing. I think Keith is very intentional and very, I think he's very intentional, very thoughtful about the ways in which he wants to advocate or be transparent with his followers about restaurants he goes to. I think people were mad at him initially, but I'm not mad at him. I think his followers are cowards. Some of them, in the sense that they want him to be the Better Business Bureau. And another woman on TikTok brought this up, and I respect what she was saying. But basically, they want Keith Lee to fight the fights that they did not have the courage or strength to do themselves. That the time they got ripped off, or they claimed to be ripped off, the allegations of being ripped off at these restaurants, the whatever, they, rather than them had addressed that issue with that restaurant or wrote or filed a complaint with the Better Business Bureau, they would rather wait for some viral sensation to fight their fights and do everything. And I just think that's the problem we see happen in all these communities, is that there is always that very brave, courageous black person or young person really that want to speak up and speak out. We see it all the time. The young people that speak out that then become the dog that they will sick on somebody that they don't have the courage to step up to. And so I just don't want Keith to be weaponized in that way. And I think he doesn't want to be weaponized in that way, and I think he sees it. But I just hate when I see this in communities where we see people overextend and exhaust young folks that have the stamina and the courage to do what they won't do. Yes, encourage them, but at the same time, don't exploit them. And I think that about him a lot. So I just hope he keeps his head up. I mean, there's restaurants that's out here, confronting him in Atlanta, trying to get him to go to their restaurants and, all that. And it's just like, ugh, my goodness, like, do better. Just do better. Just do better. So, that's going on. But let me talk about this, because y'all have asked about my thoughts on Dwight Howard. And I really wasn't going to get into it because I don't like him. I really don't like Dwight Howard. I think people like Dwight Howard just makes, it's just a lot. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot. And it's been, yeah, it's a lot. How do I start this? Um, so Dwight, many years ago, because I'm in the community, right? I'm queer, I'm black, I'm in this community. And so let me tell y'all something. You know how in various cultures, whether it's with women in certain parts of town or queer people or black queer people specifically, like there's that internal whisper group. I wouldn't say whisper group, but a group of people that, in the community, they got connections. They tell people about folks, and, everybody kind of got this internal, like, girl, did you hear kind of thing? And you kind of keep it in your circle, and you don't, you ain't your business to tell, but you hear some tea and you just kind of keep it to yourself. Dwight Howard was somebody that in my queer circles, people I knew in the industry, folks knew, that was rumored to be gay, speculated to be gay, and that was what was said. Listen, I'm not in the business of outing people unless you are out here being hateful and mean and hypocrite and you're bullying people. Then maybe, right? Maybe you do need to be called for your hypocrisy if you're doing stuff that's harming people, like politicians do that. But for this situation with Dwight, I just said, look, this man's struggling. Hopefully he'll learn to love himself. Hopefully he'll, do better and live his truth, because he's too, like, why? Like, I mean, he's a popular player. He's been a successful NBA player. Like, he's an 8-time NBA All-Star and a league champion with the Los Angeles Lakers. Like, this dude is a prominent player. He's no slacker. But, and so in some sense, I recognize that could lead to why he feels like he can't be, his truth, live his truth. Possibly. I can't confirm nor deny that he is, but, here it goes. So, a couple years ago, there was this viral moment on Twitter. I don't know if people remember this. And I mean, maybe they'll find out this story, but there was I think people thought the person was trans, but it was definitely either a queer or a gender non-binary or fluid person who told this detailed story about how Dwight Howard and them allegedly messed around. And I mean, it consistently, shared what they thought were their receipts, told this story. And it was just so bizarre. And I said to myself, it's so much details here that there must be some truth or something going on. And Dwight just basically got in front of it, denied it all down. But it left a sour taste in some people's mouths. And some people kind of was like, But it just kind of disappeared a little bit. No one talked about it as much. So now there are court allegations that he sexually assaulted another man. And now he's taking on internet haters who claim he's gay or otherwise and want to put his personal business out in open. Because let me be clear. There's a lot of things going on here. He is accused of sexually assaulting another man with a third man also involved. Now, Howard said the sex between the men was consensual. So he admits to having sexual encounters with other men. But now people have been obsessed with the reality of what does this mean for his sexual orientation? And he has said that the sex he has is his own personal business, legal issues be damned. So, he's taking on internet quote unquote haters who claims he's gay or otherwise and want to put his personal business out in open. He was saying that whatever I'm doing in my bedroom is my damn bedroom. Whatever you are doing in your bedroom is your damn business. I'm sorry. He said, whatever I'm doing in my bedroom is my damn business. Whatever you are doing in your bedroom is your damn business. That is the truth. It's up to Howard to share his personal business. But he also added that, quote, I ain't got to tell nobody where I put my wood at. Okay. There's been a lot of jokes, a lot of remarks. There was an interview he did in 2019 where he said he does not identify as gay. There's been situations where he's taken to social media to have fun with the allegations. people talk about the all-time courtside interview where he was with the Atlanta Hawks and he started talking about everything starting with the D. It was just interesting. But the crazy part for me is that it's hard for me. It's frustrating that and this is the double standard, I feel like. And I mean, no one cares. We live in a society, especially in sports, right, where there's not a lot of people taking sexual abuse and assault seriously in Hollywood or in the sports industry. And so it's not that they don't care about women. So should I be surprised they care about queer men? It's baffling because this is a situation where this man is facing these serious allegations. And rather than people really be focused on the severity of those allegations and the fact that there's lawsuits and everything else, people are spending more energy fixated on his sexuality alone. And that's why I really can't with him. Because it's like, why is it that this man can be doing all of these things, but this is what we're dealing with? Priorities, people, priorities. So speaking about priorities, you all know how I love to talk about frauds or fraudulence. And I've been waiting for more details, and more details have come, so now I'm ready to talk about it. This DJ Envy situation, okay? So DJ Envy is on that show, that trash-ass show, Power 105.1 FM, The Breakfast Club. He's come under fire because of his connection with this real estate investment fraudster, Cesar Pena. Cesar Pena. Now, let's be clear, DJ Envy has not been arrested or charged with any crimes, but there are people who have been suing him. At least 9 parties have sued him, saying that without DJ Envy backing this or vouching for Pena, they would have never been scammed by that guy. And a lot of these victims of this alleged scheme said they were duped into believing that the real estate investments through Pena was legitimate based on, DJ Envy co-hosting and endorsing it on The Breakfast Club and other places on media. They've been business partners. They were flipping things. There was a page called flipping_NJ on social media. And this is where they would host the real estate investment seminars. They would do all this stuff. But earlier this month, the U.S. Attorney's Office in New Jersey announced that they arrested him, alleged he committed a multi-million-dollar real estate investment Ponzi scheme that dated back to 2017. It was a fraud. I mean, Pena is now currently out on a $1 million bail bond, and he is not allowed to leave New Jersey. Now, here's the thing. If he's convicted of this wire fraud, he could get 20 years in prison and face a $250,000 fine. And this is working class people. And let me tell you the issue. Now DJ Envy says he's a victim. He has tried to distance himself from the claims of impropriety. He said, he didn't know anything about it. He told people that if Caesar took money, quote, he wasn't privy to it. He didn't know. He's been trying to distance himself hard. He said that he's a victim. DJ Envy's lawyer says that Envy fell prey to Pena's schemes as much as anyone, claiming he's a victim. He said that apparently Envy, the lawyer apparently says that DJ Envy had even invested $500,000 of his own money in this real estate situation in which he never saw a return. He claims he's a double victim now. But see, the other problem is that people are saying, why didn't DJ Envy just let people know and why did he wait to speak up when the feds did? He could have said this, another way. He could have did this a different way. So I have thoughts. And the thing for me is, I'm just not, I think this is what annoys me about a lot of this industry around greed. This is what greed looks like. DJ Envy is making I don't doubt six figures at the Breakfast Club doing the show. He's got DJ gigs. He's getting invitations, media stuff. How much more money do a man like you need? And why would you get involved in something you know clearly nothing about? It's funny how before I was going back and looking at the seminar videos, all of this stuff that DJ Envy was doing. He was acting like he was an expert. He was acting like he was a pro. He let his celebrity get exploited. He used his fame to drive up these situations to try to raise money. But behind the scenes, he claims he's been betrayed. And I wonder if it was this man's ego of not acknowledging or wanting to admit that he got duped, because he encouraged so many people to do the same. And this is why I tell y'all, this is why I say to y'all, all these hip hop entrepreneurs, get the bag fast, get rich quick scheme, all this, it's going to catch up. It's going to catch up to you. There's no way that you can coexist and make this money and do these things and not have any consequence for your actions. I just don't believe it. And so seeing what I see now, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. And that's, that's my thing. I'm not surprised that this is how it played out. I just wonder if DJ Envy is going to, the lawsuits, going to jail, I don't know about if they can connect them to criminal behavior, but it is something to be said about misleading people. And I don't know how much responsibility courts will find. And maybe they will say, look, man, you own your own. You can't just do something. This man wasn't a credible. DJ Envy, I'm not his lawyer, but I would just be like, just because DJ said it on his radio show, I've heard that, iHeartRadio, which is the overarching company that owns the Breakfast Club and these stations, have been removing episodes in which DJ Envy was promoting this. And I wonder if he didn't put a disclaimer up or clarify enough, what is what. And I think that is the issue in the airwaves. You can't sell products. You can't promote certain products or food products and things without putting some disclaimers if it's something in a way. So for this to be going on the radio, he used his platform to try to elevate his wealth. That is very telling within itself. So, yeah. So the Britney book, continues. 400,000 copies, I heard, has been sold. More than that. It's a smash. It's a smash hit. The book is selling. It's selling. It's selling. Even her music streams are going up. Right now, they're saying that over 400,000 copies of the book has already been sold. Britney has now claimed she has the highest selling celebrity memoir in history, and she stands to make a lot of money from it if it's true. They're saying 25% of the book she gets. She's already claiming it. Over 400,000. She's already made $12.5 million off the book. It's a historic memoir. It's a big deal. And they're reporting that she gets 25% of net profits from the book. And she even is saying that her book outsold Prince Harry's. Now, Prince Harry's book, I don't know, that may be a little cocky, but it did sell in the first day. We don't know if there's more, but apparently there's been speculation that pre-sale figures for the book could have exceeded 9 million copies. Now, to be clear, Spare, which was by Prince Harry, who reported release day sales that exceeded 1.4 million. But then 2 days later, the Guinness Book of World Records confirmed that the figure qualified as the world record for the fastest selling nonfiction book of all time, having beaten the previous record held by former President Barack Obama, whose 2020 book, A Promised Land, sold 887,000 copies on its release day. So it looks like we got to see. But apparently Prince Harry sold 1.4 million in the release day. A Promised Land sold 887,000 in its release day. We got to see what Britney's numbers are going to give. But I think we can all expect that next week Oh, this upcoming week, Britney Spears will be number one on the New York Times bestsellers list. Love the book. Love the book. The Woman in Me, I truly loved. Um, but to be clear, it will have to outsell memoirs in print for years to sometimes decades. For comparison, they were saying Michelle Obama's 2018 memoir Becoming sold 1.4 million in the first week, and she sold 14 million copies in the first year. We gotta see what Britney's book is doing, but it looked like Britney's book might pull something off. But my God, 1.4 million books. Books be going platinum. That's crazy. All that money. All that money. Woo. I could imagine. Look, the case for cancel culture is doing good, but it ain't doing that. My goodness. Ugh. But the bigger outcome, the bigger things people have been talking about over the past week has been more fallout on Justin Timberlake. Justin is going through it. Justin was trying to make a comeback. He did that song with SZA. He was, supposed to be doing some NSYNC stuff. But it looked like the comeback is taking a very bad turn because now that everything's been said, it's back in the news. Now, apparently, he has a good old friend, member of his group, Lance Bass, who has been publicly come out in defense and just saying, hey, people should let it go in the past. Listen, kid, it is what it is. Justin Timberlake's a grown man. The stuff that book talks about, when Britney had her abortion and she was crying and bleeding, this man sat next to her playing a guitar, while she was in pain. Yeah. Yeah, nah. It's a no for me. It's always been a no for me, but for real, it's a no for me. So, like I said, I know that Justin Timberlake is probably sick of me and sick of Britney and sick of Janet. Well, Janet. But I know he's sick of a lot of people right now who's bringing up his past. But you got to remember, this man's whole career was built off of taunting and discarding women. Janet, Britney. Like, he capitalized off of these scandals involving women to get ahead. And he got away with it because, one, he can sing. He does have talent. I think he's a little overrated at times, but he has talent. And so to see him, to see this happen, here we go. Here we are. So this week's Ask Ernest. I was not going to do it, but you all wanted it. I was going to do Ask Ernest, but this question, I had gotten about 4 variations of this question. And so I was like, okay, this is clearly the question everybody want to know. So I'll read it out loud. Hey, Ernest, what's up? I hope all is well. I know this might be a dumb question, but I'm going to ask anyway. What did you mean when you talked about the straights and restaurants? Like the straights, like as in straights, parentheses, question mark. All right, so let me tell y'all about this. If you've been listening to this podcast from the very beginning, me saying the straights is nothing new. It's a joke. It's a mockery of when straight people say the gays. Like when people say, I love the gays this, the gays that. And quite frankly, it's annoying to refer to people in this type of plurality, like the blacks, the Jews, it's like, no, we're people. We're humans. We're black people. We're Jewish people. We're queer people. Like, don't be out here just being like the gays, the this, that's just weird. So as a joke, I say the straights. And it's funny because when I say the straights, when people hear it, they get an automatic knee-jerk reaction to it that makes them feel like it's out of place. But why is it that you all never seem to have that same reaction when people say the gays or the trans, even though that's inappropriate, it's transgender people, but people say the trans or the, all the other stuff. Like, these are problematic ways to describe a group of people. So I say the straights because of that. But what I was talking about was that I'm so tired of these stupid stunts. And I feel like every other week there's a trend now of people trying to create fake lists and start wars. Who cares? So there's this thing about bad first dates, bad restaurants to go to on first dates, and all this shit. And they were just saying like the number one was Cheesecake Factory and it was Applebee's next in these restaurants. And Chili's was on there, and it was about these are bad first dates, and no one knew where the list came from. You know how this goes. Someone makes something up, they throw it around the internet, people pass it around like it's the biblical truth, and everyone's making judgments and being snobs and elitists about what restaurants they like and whatever. Listen, a first date is a first date. Nowadays, people want a person that they can love and cares about them. And if somebody gonna take you somewhere and you meeting them or whatever, like, look, I get everybody think they deserve what they think luxury is, whatever. It's just subjective, right? But like, why do we go through this whole pissing match of, oh, I got money, I would never go there, I go here? Like, who fucking cares? Go where you go. My first date with my boyfriend turned husband, because I want to be clear, our dates as married people are very different from our dates when we were booed up, but that's not even a problem, right? We were in college. I think our first date was at the Indian buffet in Philly. It was not New Delhi, it was Tandoor. When Tandoor's open, now it's Etka now, but it used to be Tandoor. And we went there, we went there because it was BYB and we could drink. That was our first date. Our second date was Olive Garden, and I tore the fuck out of that tour of Italy with those breadsticks and that unlimited, salad. And I was so happy because as a queer person, going on a date with somebody who's out, proud, just as smart as you, look good as you, I was so in awe of that. That was what took the cake for me. But for people to be so hell-bent and obsessed with, Cheesecake Factory, this, listen. If these places were so bad, why are they still open? Somebody's going, baby. And somebody's lying, right? Not all of y'all are going to Steak 48 or going to Alpenrose or Zahav or John George's. Y'all are not all doing that as your first dates. Sit down. Now, some of you all might if you're a lawyer or whatever, but then that's weird to me because, anyway. But or Butcher and Singer. To me, I feel like these conversations has just become pointless because no one's actually, the intention is to get people to basically, one, it's to get women, find a way, it's a way for men, and it's a very inter-community thing, right? It's an opportunity for men to shame women, to frame, and let me be clear, cis-het women, to frame them as gold diggers or opportunists and this, that, and third. It's also a way for straight men to flex whatever muscle of clout they think they have to justify all the stuff that they're doing. And why they spend money the way they do. All of this is just grandstanding and irrelevant. And quite frankly, go where you want to go, eat where you want to eat. Because a man can take you to Butcher and Singer for the first time ever on a first date and then dog you out and curse you out and be a total jerk. Or you could get somebody to take you on your first date and it could go be a McDonald's or wherever the hell you go and you can eat the food and la, 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 I'm loving it, right? So it all changes. It's all relative. And quite frankly, this is beneath me, but I want to make that clear. So movies that I've watched, I was big into documentaries this weekend, really big on the documentaries, heavy on the documentaries. I watched 2. The Milli Vanilli documentary, y'all, that's a hit. Y'all got to watch that. Milli Vanilli, y'all may not remember, okay? This group, they aim to reframe the controversy, which I think they did a really good job. This group was a pop group, a black pop group, back in the late 80s, early 90s. They had a hit song called Girl You Know It's True. Girl, you know it's true. And they had this cool dance music, R&B, rap vibe. They had 3 number 1 hits. They sold 6 million copies in the United States. They had striking looks. They had a good swag, long braids, spandex. They was popping, yo. They were made for what was considered the MTV era. And they won a Grammy for Best New Artist. And then all of a sudden, it came crashing down when it was exposed that they were lip syncing the songs. And that was the moment when people were like, wait a minute, you lip synced the song? And it was by other singers. And I think that's what people were shocked about. was just like, oh my goodness, I can't believe this group, had this thing. So they didn't sing a single note on the album. They didn't. That was a wild part. Like, they were at concerts, live performances. They lip synced everything, and it was a lot. It was a lot. The sad part was that, you know the group at the time, they got the brunt of a lot of the blame. Um, no one talked about Clive Davis, and the executives who was a part of it. You know, the sad thing is that one of the members of the group struggled with drug addiction, died of an overdose 25 years ago at 32 years old. Um, Milli Vanilli said they were seduced by money. They had quote unquote made a pact with the devil. Um, it was just sad. It was a very interesting, documentary. Like, they really got to share their story with the world and explain to people like what happened. And yeah, I really liked it. It's on Paramount Plus for those who don't know, but it was strong. It was really, really good. Um, the other documentary I watched, which is on Amazon Prime, is called Silver Dollar Road. If you have not heard about it, they don't want you to know about it, but it's dope. It's about this black, um, this land, this piece of land in the South. It's like an island. It's like a paradise. It's beautiful, and it was owned. This land was owned for years and decades by black people, and it talks about how basically white supremacists was trying to intimidate and force these people from giving up their land so much that they threatened to arrest them if they didn't give up the property, which they said, okay, we're going to go to jail. And some of those individuals were robbed of their critical years because they decided to stand up against this taking of their land. And it's a remarkable documentary. Again, it's called Silver Dollar Road, and it's on Amazon Prime. As far as music goes, y'all know what I was listening to this week. I was listening to 1989, Taylor Swift. She's going to be 35 next year. Oh, interesting. She's going to be 35, Taylor Swift is. Look how much she's achieved. 1989 Taylor Swift version is great, of course. She re-records it. It sounds better than ever. And she breaks her own record as being the most single-streamed artist in one day in Spotify's history. So, it's doing what it's doing. She's only got 2 more albums left to record. That's Self-Titled, which is Taylor Swift's self-titled album, and then Reputation. And after that, all of those Scooter Braun, at one point in time owned masters, they die, while her fans and people who've kept up with the interest, their locks and things, will continue to grow and prosper. So, I'm happy for her. I'm happy that she was able to take control of her music, that she stuck with this. Because sometimes artists will say, I'm going to re-record my albums, and then they just don't. But she has dropped 2 re-recorded albums each year. So, Fearless and Red, Speak Now, and 1989 this year. Next year, Self-Titled and Reputation. I feel like that's it. It took her 3 years to pull this off, and she's been able to make an event out of it. And the Eras Tour, I think, definitely helped put all this on the map again. Like, what a smart, genius tour. Because basically, the nostalgia you're getting from these songs. She has the number 1 song in the country, a song that came out 6 years ago. Cruel Summer is not a new song. I remember jamming that. That was one of my favorite songs off the Lover album. And I was so upset that she never made a music video for it. She didn't make it the lead single. I just was like, what are you doing? It reminds me of when Beyonce did the 4 album, and In the Time was not the lead single. Run the World should have never been a single. But I digress. So as far as TV shows and things go, I've been following up with Love and Hip Hop Miami. We're at the season finale this week. Super excited about that. It's been a good show. This was a very good season. Safari with Amara and Negra still don't sit well with me, but I'm gonna let them be great. Baddies East You know, Christiana's left the show because she's focused on her pregnancy. I want to say all this. I feel like we're at this point where I show it's time for some new blood. Like, I want to see some new faces. I feel like the reality show train has been, at least for Black reality shows, has been sticking with the same people. And I'm kind of ready for some new energy, some new talent, because I feel like there's a redundancy now at the point. And there's nothing wrong with the talent we have, some of them. But I would just like to see more. I would just like to see some new people, because I just feel like everyone's becoming too predictable. That's just my take. And then lastly, so last week I thought that the Lit Brothers surprise that they had for me was last week. I thought it was like, oh, you know, the upcoming Monday. But now I'm realizing that the surprise is actually this week. They gave me a hint. I don't know all the details, but I will update you all next week for sure. So what I do know is that part 1 is that I'm going to have a relaxing massage spa treatment at the Four Seasons. And then I'm going to have a cocktail with the boys at the Four Seasons on the rooftop. And then I'm going to have a very special curated dinner that's going to be a part of the package. That's all I know for now. So, you know, here we are. Looking forward to November. Looking forward to the gala. Looking forward to all the things to come. I guess people are still going to be doing some Halloween stuff later this week. But, you know, October was a very eventful month. Libra season was perfect. Scorpio season is coming with all of the surprises, these Scorpios. But I'm good. I'm staying focused. I keep my eyes on the prize. And I hope you all are on your own way too, right? So as always, be well and be best. Ernestly Speaking is recorded in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and can be found on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. To stay up to date with the latest on the show, follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Mr. Ernest Owens. Use the hashtag Ernestly Speaking to tell me what you thought about this episode, and check out my website at ernestowens.com.